Rutherford Technology High hit the headlines in June this year when a group of disgruntled students went on strike. Now the school is leading the district by teaming up with 3 other high schools in a network designed to give senior students more choice.
In our case, we'll have students from Maitland High School coming over here to access Japanese classes, information technology and primary industries, and some of our students will be going to Maitland to do engineering science.
Francis Greenway and Maitland Grossman High Schools are also sharing HSC subjects.
Well, firstly, it gives them an option to study subjects that they're really interested in and they've got skills in, or they might want to pursue as a career option. But it also opens their awareness as to what's happening in other schools, develop new friendships, and I believe it will really enhance their learning outcomes.
You only get a choice of 5 different subjects per line, and not everyone wants to do those 5 subjects, so travelling to the different schools will just sort of help in a lot of ways, I think.
I think it's only the beginning. I mean, to say through technology, I'm sure that in the very near future we'll have students accessing learning from other schools in Sydney or from other TAFEs, either in Sydney or in Newcastle itself.
The scheme starts next year. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Quite an epidemic with women our age, but now so much more with younger women. And it's really to make them very aware that you need to look into it at an early age, not just at our age group.
The latest figures suggest more than 70% of people aged between 18 and 20 regularly drink to excess.
The Australian social scene revolves around alcohol in general. You meet your mate at the pub after work, or you meet your friends and girlfriends at the club and all that kind of thing. And a lot of young people can't wait to grow up till they become part of that social scene.
18-year-old Jerome Michael Bates Longbottom of Merriweather, who yesterday pleaded guilty in Newcastle court for his second drink driving charge in 6 months, is said to be among a growing number of P-platers caught over the limit. Many are asking why, when education about the dangers has never been as widespread. Jerome's high school, Hamilton St Francis Xavier's, is among those where an intensive alcohol and road safety course is compulsory.
It stresses again how important it is to have such a course, and it's always regretful that someone has taken that decision.
Students had varying opinions on the magistrate's warning the schoolboy may face time behind bars.
Do you think that's fair?
No.
Why?
Because he might not have meant to do it. It was just, I don't know. He should have another chance, I reckon.
Well, it's a pretty serious thing to do. You think he'd know not to do it again after he'd done it once.
Whether or not Magistrate Michael Morahan was just trying to scare Jerome, or if he intends to send him to jail, remains to be seen. The 18-year-old's case will again go before Newcastle Court on January 24th. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
From this to this, it's the dream for any young player, but one Ryan Rowland Smith is a lot closer to making reality. The teenager has just signed a 7-year deal with Major League club, the Seattle Mariners.
I mean, a lot of people look at this as, you know, they sign and that's what they've been hoping for, but I mean, if look at this as being a beginning and, you know, the first step to what you want to do.
It's going to take plenty of hard work to reach his ultimate goal of a World Series berth, with Ryan to hit the road in the minor leagues, knowing it could take years to get his chance.
And it's like, how much do you want it? You know, that's what you've got to ask yourself. And when things like this start coming up, I guess it does motivate you.
Work ethic aside, it's simple to see why talent scouts picked this picture up, nudging 6'4" on the old scale and weighing in just under 100 kilograms. It makes for a fair wind-up. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Colburn is looking more like an emerald city thanks to recent rain, and if you're a wine drinker, it just gets better on closer inspection. While those on the land in the state's northwest are struggling in the wake of last week's floods, the rain in the Lower Hunter has been enough to stand the crop in good stead for the picking season, which begins in January.
Really, the vineyards fared very well, so we're in good shape at this time.
Meanwhile, Brian McGuigan has rejected claims by Country Labor that cashed-up American companies buying out smaller Australian winemakers will make our most famous drops undrinkable. It's claimed US winemakers would apply low standards to the winemaking process. Brian McGuigan says that's just not the case.
There'd be no question that they'd look to decrease our quality. I would have thought they've come in because they understand that Australian wine is great value for money, and therefore they'll want to take that message back to their consumers.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
These kids need a lot of help, and I'd be the first to put up my hand to give them a hand and sort of give them experiences that I've been through.
He was one of the most kindest and gentlest persons I guess I've had the privilege to know.
It was while riding his beloved Harley-Davidson motorbike that the 23-year-old lost his life. With girlfriend Loni Hickey on board, they'd been riding south along Dudley Road at Whitebridge just after 11 o'clock last night when tragedy struck.
The rider was negotiating a moderate left-hand bend. Now it appears for some reason that he's lost control of the bike, slid across the road onto the incorrect side and hit head-on with a Honda Civic that was coming the other way.
The couple suffered serious internal and spinal injuries and this morning died at the John Hunter Hospital, surrounded by their loved ones. Two young men who'd been travelling in the Honda Civic escaped the crash unharmed. Police will now conduct a mechanical test on Dullis's bike.
He'd only owned his Harley-Davidson for about 6 months now, and it was something that he loved to ride, and I think it just shows the dangers. They're unforgiving machines, and unfortunately you don't get too many second chances.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
These are the views from the top of Newcastle's tallest building. Latex House was built by the Cattell family, that's latex spelt backwards, in 1953. But for the last 20 years, the only ones enjoying the view have been squatters and pigeons. Things are about to change though, with council approving new plans.
Due to the fact that it's probably known as the worst building in the street, it's got to be known as the best building in the street. So our brief is to put in the best quality spaces.
Known as the Pinnacle, there'll be 68 luxury apartments, including 5 penthouses, with the building to be twice its current bulk. This has got to be Newcastle's filthiest building. After almost 20 years as a giant pigeon coop, the smell on every floor is almost unbearable. But the developers say $1.5 million for a penthouse here will be a steal.
It's the Cinderella story, isn't it? It's, and so they'll be part of I guess, the renaissance of the West End of Newcastle.
And while the Pinnacle should help revitalise the West End, there are plans to boost activity and reduce loitering in the East End by reopening the mall to traffic after hours.
It might liven the place up a bit, might stop a lot of the hooligans around, mightn't it? Yeah, mightn't be a bad idea at all.
Be a good idea if it's going to stop the nonsense.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The attack on John Stewart and his wife Susan could have come from the pages of a crime novel. The two were bashed as they lay sleeping in their Lochinvar home. 3 men used cable ties and a knife in the attack, which left John Stewart with serious injuries, including a severed windpipe. In the months that followed, 3 Newcastle men confessed to the violent attack, for which they are all serving jail terms. But they claimed it was masterminded by Stewart's business partner and the majority shareholder in the Lochinvar Equestrian Centre, Lionel Desange. At the conclusion of a 7-week trial in Newcastle District Court today, a jury found the 41-year-old Sydney businessman free of any involvement and acquitted him of 3 charges, including conspiracy to murder and causing grievous bodily harm with intent to murder. In an unusual move, Judge Armitage ordered that everyone be searched by security before they entered the courtroom to hear the verdict, a request apparently made by Mr Desange. Mr Desange refused to comment on the outcome, opting to express his gratitude for the verdict through his barrister.
And he has told me that he doesn't wish to make any statements to the press at this time, except to say that he would like to thank the members of the jury for their careful attention that they have given to the evidence during the course of this trial.
Desange spent more than 12 months in custody for his alleged involvement in the attack after being rearrested last September. His barrister says he's considering applying for court costs. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
It's probably easier to list the titles Simon Lack didn't win this year, but here goes.
He won the singles titles in both the Newcastle Champion of Club Champions and Hubbard the Hunter. He's the current local, state and national pairs winner along with Clayton Parker and a member of the New South Wales team which won the Australian Sides Championship.
This is the best bowls year I've ever had. To do this in 1 year was fantastic.
But last night in Sydney, Lack won another crown, that of the New South Wales Bowler of the Year, and would you believe it took him by surprise.
There's a lot of big guns there, Australian players and everything, so I was lucky to win it, yeah, I thought so.
The success hasn't dimmed Lack's desire to win, however. He'll be back next year to try to do it all again.
It'll be a fantastic opportunity to defend all these titles, so I'm really looking forward to the challenge next year. It'll be a bigger challenge.
Meanwhile, Charlestown bowler Sam Lagutsa has been named in the triples and fours teams that'll represent the state at the Australian Super Challenge in February. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Nurses working at the aged care centre took their protest over the proposed sale of the centre to the streets of Cessnock today. Around 100 people rallied to send a clear message to both Hunter Health and the state government. The sale, even to a not-for-profit organisation, is not on.
The central issue of whether or not governments should be privatising effectively services which have been traditionally provided by the government.
The Nurses Association says future job security for its members and working conditions at the facility are at risk.
Even though current employees have their conditions of employment protected, you're looking at a situation where in the future, if the sale proceeds, you will have individuals working side by side under different award conditions.
This week it came to light 2 staff members had been suspended after allegations of mistreatment of elderly patients.
The appropriate thing is to investigate properly and fairly and then act according to the evidence which is determined.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Arriving on Monday with little football behind him this season, Anthony Manaka was the first to admit he's not 100% fit, but that hasn't stopped coach Lee Sterry throwing the new recruit into the starting side tonight. The 22-year-old will play an attacking role from the midfield, moving up to support striker John Bonavolia. That pushes Daniel McBreen back to the bench, alongside Andy Roberts, who makes way for Chris Zorisic, the defender returning from a week off with a hamstring strain. One player who can't wait to start is Anthony Surgeon. He's never played against his old club before and has been looking forward to this clash ever since he left the Wolves to join Newcastle this season.
Most in particular this one, I'm hoping we can really give it to him.
Andy Harper hit the training paddock for Newcastle during the week as well, but is still thought to be at least 3 weeks away from playing. Wollongong, meanwhile, has the services of star striker Scott Chipperfield tonight. 25 to 30 km/h easterly winds propped up the 70-odd crews in the fourth round of the State 16-foot skiff series. But it wasn't smooth sailing for all. The Bundy Rum crew watered down after a dip in the lake. Multiple state and national champion Gary Brunnages held the early lead, but John Boyd on Skilled showed plenty of it, working his crew through the field and into the lead with a lap and a half to go. From there it was never headed, winning ahead of Luxaflex and Manly crew 2GB, which won yesterday's heat. Skilled Engineering now leads the state series by 2 points. At Throsby Creek, the Super Sprint rowing regatta was blown a little off course, with winds making it difficult for some to navigate. Short 500-metre sprint races have become the vogue style of championships, and added to the 3-lane course at Newcastle, racing today was especially tight. Crews from 10 clubs in the Central District rowed today for only the second time at Throsby, set to be the new home for the Newcastle club. Simon Moore hardly seemed troubled when he came in after Newcastle was 3 wickets down. He scored on both sides of the wicket, but once in double figures he went for one too many, popping up an easy catch. Skipper Murray Christie frustrated the North Coast attack when he came in, but his stay was short-lived as well, with Chris Adamson snaring his second wicket on an unpredictable Tamworth pitch. Newcastle ended up winning by 21 runs. It was a big night for Hunter Valley Speedway drivers and riders overnight, with some literally on fire at Tomago. Others reached boiling point without the flames. The Hunter Valley Hurricane Adam Clark, though, swept all before him to race away and take the speed car feature. At Gosford, the Grant Bond-led sidecar team won its class, while Ben Shields recovered from early trouble to win the feature Gold Cup final.
Abandoned, burnt-out cars, an unwelcome sight in a state forest, but not uncommon. More than 70 wrecks have been dragged from bushland in Port Stephens.
They look unsightly. They're an environmental pollution problem. They obviously leak fluids and oil into the soils. They harbour vermin, and they do encourage that further illegal dumping to occur.
The problem of illegal dumping in the region has become so bad that several authorities have joined forces in a large-scale removal program.
And especially in remote areas like this, there's not many people out this way. People come and go without being detected fairly easily, but we hope to deter that in the future with extra patrols and surveillance programs.
A task force has been formed with the recent clean-up just the start of a crackdown, which may even involve the installation of cameras in bushland to catch offenders in the act. Brooke Webster, NBN News. Squadron leader Dave Robertson started his training at 1,000 feet but is slowly working his way down. The result, a high-speed, low-level display of precision and power. Designed to show off the agility of the Hornet fighter.
The F-18 in particular, in comparison to other aircraft, has got some impressive power-to-weight ratios, so it can accelerate very well. It also is able to basically almost out-dogfight most other modern combat aircraft.
Both pilot and aircraft will be on display in the new year as part of Federation air shows. And for the public, it will be an opportunity for a rare close encounter with low-level passes and incredible aerobatic manoeuvres. Between now and then, Dave will fly these skies, perfecting the performance and making sure he's ready for anything.
The weather has probably got the largest factor to play on the display. If there's any low cloud, then we've got to alter it significantly. Secondly, when you're actually executing the manoeuvres, the timing of each manoeuvre is very important.
Brooke Webster, NBN News.
With the University of Newcastle now relying on less government money and more on self-funding, the review prepared by 3 academics from outside Newcastle suggests that the institution could run far more efficiently.
This review, if you read it carefully, is very specific about emphasising the teaching, the learning, the research activities of the university and supporting those. It's not about selling things, it's not about creating products, it's not about corporatising the university at all.
As part of the restructure, 11 faculties will be squashed into 4 key units: medicine, engineering, economics and humanities. The Tertiary Education Union says the shake-up is about cutting jobs. Not so, says the Deputy Vice-Chancellor.
Universities certainly have to be carefully managed because resources, as I said, are tough or tight and times are tough. I think any university that thinks it is a business has missed the point.
The Uni Council will consider whether or not to ratify the review in a fortnight.
It's early in the morning. Yes. You wake up.
Don't get me wrong, but I'm very concerned that this is the carrot the developers are using to keep the greenies quiet, to keep land care. Thanks, Rhonda. Yep, for the mum, thank you.
The picket line and tent outside the Carrington factory was being dismantled this afternoon by workers who, for the first time in a month, had smiles on their faces. When receivers were appointed to STP a month ago, the men were told by the family-operated company there'd be no money for them. Now, a deal thrashed out between receivers and the AMWU guarantees around 70% of their entitlements.
Oh, I'm pleased that it's over. So I've still got a way to go yet, but you know, we'll take one step at a time.
We've achieved what we wanted to. I think it's going to be good in the long run. It's not all over, but what we were offered today was a good offer.
Oh, this is a significant victory for the workers. When we started this, they had nothing at all.
The men were briefed on the plan today that will see the company allocate $1 million of its secured money to help pay the $3.3 million owed to its workers throughout Australia. The union will fight for the remaining 30% next year in the Supreme Court.
The employees decide to return to work tomorrow morning at normal start time. Then the work in progress, as that's been completed, there will be progressive payments into a trust fund of the employees' entitlements.
While these men will be back on the job tomorrow morning, they're all well aware that there's only enough work to last around 4 weeks. Their futures beyond that remain uncertain. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Although VAS Research Institute Biomedical began in Western Australia in 1998, it's since become centred around researchers working in Newcastle. Now the company has gone public and will list on the stock exchange next week.
We're oversold, I understand, which is really good for us, and we've raised the money that will give us 3 to 4 years without even generating funds, but we do expect that some of our products will be generating funds long before that period.
The company mainly focuses on developing diagnostic tests to investigate how the internal or mucous surfaces of the body are regulated. Its researchers have also developed a test to gauge the performance of athletes and racehorses, as well as a test for diagnosing peptic ulcers and an oral vaccine for bronchitis. The founder of VRI Biomedical, Professor Robert Clancy, has high hopes for the company in the commercialisation of biomedical products.
It provides a great model system for putting together ideas that come out of universities and the commercial world. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to establish a model that other universities and other commercial ventures can copy.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.